Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. My name is Takiwa Smith. I am founder and executive director of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics Link Incorporated, and I want to welcome you to our last Teen Science Cafe of 2021. Um, this week is a special cafe because it is Computer Science Education Week. And the purpose of our Teen Science Cafes, which is a program of our Math and Science Career Academy, is to expose teens to STEM careers at a critical time in their K through 12 educational experiences, where they're making decisions about what they are going to do once they graduate from high school. If they're in middle school, they're making decisions about what STEM clubs they want to participate in, what high school they want to go to, if they want to go to a magnet school. In high school, they're making decisions about what they want to major in college, how they're going to spend their summers, where they're going to be working or going to a summer science program. But it's a critical time where you're thinking about what is next. And it's the perfect time for you to meet STEM professionals that are doing things that you may be interested in or things that you have never heard of that you may be interested in based on some of the things you like to do in school, based on the things that you may watch on TV, based on who you follow on social media, based on the places you like to go and how you spend your time, and based on the random experiments that you may do or the questions that you ask about how the world works around you. So, Computer Science Week is where we focus on the impact of computer science in our everyday lives, as well as the different career paths in computer science. And so, without further ado, I am going to introduce our program coordinator, Carlin Pounders, who is going to introduce this evening's speaker.
Thank you, Tequila. So tonight's speaker is Linwood Wetherington, who is a career information technology professional born in the great state of Alabama. He has traveled the world being a child of Army parents and eventually settled in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. He attended the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, where he received a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Information Systems. He furthered his education at the University of Maryland Global Campus, receiving his Master's of Science in Information Technology with a specialization in cybersecurity. He holds numerous industry certifications in both systems engineering and cybersecurity. He has worked around the Beltway as both an implementer and cybersecurity professional. He is currently a security architect for Salesforce, a Fortune 500 company specializing in customer relationship management services, based in San Francisco, California. So, without further ado, I will hand it over to Mr. Wetherington.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're consuming this presentation from. As already spoken, my name is Linwood Wetherington. I am a cybersecurity evangelist, meaning that not only is it my profession to speak about cybersecurity, it means I'm also passionate about cybersecurity, and I'm here to share my knowledge, share my experience, and share my background so you all can be as passionate or as close to passionate as I am about cybersecurity. Okay, so before we get started, at the bottom, there's a Minty Code, www.minty.com, and there's a code. I want you to go there now on your laptop, desktop, phone, or whatever. Put that code in. It's going to ask you a question, right? That question is, what is the most vulnerable component of an information system, right? I want you to think about that. We're going to use that. We're going to talk about that later in this presentation, right? Because that is important. And I want you to think about that. So at the bottom, it'll be at the bottom of this slide, or it'll be at the bottom of some other slides as well. Just go to that site, put that code in, answer that question. If you have more than one answer, feel free to put two answers in. It's all right. It's not being graded. Okay? All right. So again, Linwood Wetherington, CISSP. CISSP is a Certified Information System Security Professional. It is a certification that all cybersecurity security folks have. That's at the high. It's an executive management level certification, meaning from a cybersecurity standpoint, I know everything from fire extinguishers all the way up to advanced hacking and penetration testing. So it's a large certification, and it's at the end of my name. So CISP, if you ever see anybody with a CISP at the end of their name, it means they're a cybersecurity guy. So here's my bio, as Carlin has already articulated, right? I've pretty much done a number of things in my career. I attended Florida A&M University. I was a STEM student, much like you all yourselves. You're starting off in STEM, or you have an interest in STEM. I had an interest in STEM as well. Mine was a little bit different, less linear, maybe than some of you all's. Maybe you have a better idea of what you wanted to do. I did not. I wanted to build airplanes when I went to Florida A&M. And some kind of way I ended up in IT, and I became a cybersecurity professional. So it doesn't really matter what you start off in, as long as you have a drive for knowledge and you're a tinkerer by nature and an analytical sort of mind. There are many different ways you can go in STEM, right? You don't have to get it right on day one. Just keep moving forward, keep going in that direction, and eventually you'll find something that you're passionate about. So a little bit more background about me. So I've been a systems engineer, security engineer for most of my career, well, about half of my career now, actually building things, right? Building information systems, building applications to deploy to end users, right? To customers. I supported the Department of Defense. I've supported the Department of Homeland Security in that particular lane. And then I switched over to cybersecurity. I eventually got a degree in cybersecurity. I got certifications in cybersecurity. And right now I provide cybersecurity services for Salesforce. Salesforce is a CRM company, meaning we manage relationships between businesses and their customers. You won't see us directly providing services to you, but like, let's say we all have bought shoes from Nike, right? There's a Nike app. For some magical reason, Nike sends out messages to you. You don't know why. Hey, it's Christmas time, 15% off. They send out this marketing blast and all of these great things. And you're like, hey, that's pretty convenient, right? Or, hey, I noticed you were in the area of one of our stores. Would you like to visit a store or something like that? There are systems in the background that are providing all that intelligence. That is something that Salesforce does. We're a Fortune 500 company. We provide a lot of services to a lot of companies like Sonos, Uber, Southwest, a lot of the big players in many industries. They use Salesforce to communicate with their customers. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, I ensure secure delivery of those services. And not only that, I help communicate to customers that have questions about our cybersecurity. So I talk to a lot of security professionals and ensure that they're comfortable with what Salesforce is. All right, so today we're going to talk about cybersecurity. If you have never heard about cybersecurity, great. It's a great day for you, because we're going to talk about exactly what is cybersecurity. We hear about a lot of jobs, we hear about a lot of topics, a lot of services, and a lot of issues. Typically, we hear about money being lost, and everybody wants a career in cybersecurity. So what does that mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why is it important? Why is cybersecurity important? Who are the players in cybersecurity? We're going to talk a little bit about careers in that particular lane. And also we're going to talk about where do I start, right? Because your career in not only cybersecurity, but IT or science or engineering starts today. It doesn't start when you get to college or when you graduate high school or when you get your master's degree. It starts today. Your attitude and your aptitude are going to begin on day one or day zero or day -1. So I'm going to try to provide some tools for you to start your journey now. No cost to yourself, nothing you have to sign up for, but just some things that if you want to get into cybersecurity, or if you're just interested, some tools for you to consume that way. Also at the bottom, if you haven't hit the link, www.minty.com, there's a code at the bottom. Put the code in, answer the question. All right. So what is cybersecurity? So we have some definitions here, right? NIST, this is the National Institute of Science and Technology. This is a government agency that pretty much are the keepers of what the truth is, right? If you want to know what an inch is or what a foot is or what is a router, things of that nature, NIST provides definitions. They provide standards. They provide something that we can all agree on from a scientific standpoint, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's electrical engineering, whether it's chemical engineering. NIST is a federal government agency that kind of provides a normalized definition of what this thing is and how we are supposed to go about supporting or delivering that sort of service, right? So you'll hear about NIST all throughout your career because they always have something to say. but this is their definition, right? It's an approach or series of steps to prevent or manage risk or damage to unauthorized exploitation of an information system, right? They say it in a lot more words than I do, but that's essentially what it is. It's a lot about risk, a lot about risk management. And we use the term risk because I'm sure you've heard this before. When it comes to cybersecurity as well as vulnerabilities, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? So we can't always mitigate every single threat. And when I say mitigate, that means stop or lower the impact of, right? We can't address every single attack, but we can lower the risk. And that is a lot what we do as cybersecurity professionals, not just stop attacks, but lower the risk of attacks. Me, I like things to be simple. I don't like long definitions. Cybersecurity is the tools, the methods, and the policies used to protect my stuff, my reputation, and my privacy. My stuff, that's the stuff I have in my home. I don't want someone to break into my home and take my shoes, take my Nikes, take my PlayStation, things of that. I want that stuff to be protected. But also, I don't want someone to go out and ruin my name. Say, hey, Linwood is a bad dude. He's just a bad guy all around, right? I don't want someone to do that and have a picture of me that is not who I am, and they doctored it and then ruin my reputation, right? That is something that I also don't want to happen. And also my privacy. You know, if somebody were to break into my house and find my medical records, I don't want someone to say, hey, you know, Linwood's daughter was sick a week ago, right? That is something that I don't want everyone to know, right? I want that privacy to be protected. And that's essentially what we're doing from a cybersecurity standpoint. So what does that look like, right? From a global standpoint, what does digital look like across the world, right? So there are, 7.8 billion people that are on this earth. And that was just in January. I'm sure some people have had babies since January. That number is going to increase, and that number is constantly increasing, right? It's only going to get more and more people on the earth. And as that increases, more and more people are going to have these. Everyone, I'm sure you all have those as well. The more people that are on this earth, once they get of a responsible age, they get a phone too. And as we know on our phones, what do we have? We have our social media. We have financial apps that we use to tap on a gas station or tap at the Target to say, hey, here's my credit card. I mean, you don't have to pull your credit card out anymore. You just tap your phone, right? All that information is on your phone. You have pictures of your loved ones. You have pictures of, different types of personal information that you have, right? You don't want to take a note, say, hey, I need to go to the DMV or the MVA, depending on where you're at. You know, I don't want to, I need to take a picture of my license, right? All that information is on your phone. And the more people that are using these phones is the more information that are going on these phones, right? And we're constantly, we communicate with our bank, right? We communicate with our medical facilities, like, hey, I need to go and get a COVID shot or something like that. Let me go on CVS and put some information on there, right? This information is constantly being exchanged using these mobile devices. It's not just us sitting at a computer anymore. It's using a mobile device, right? So more information, more people, more impact, more money, right? Also, we have internet users, right? 60% of the population is using the internet now. Decades ago, that wasn't the case. The internet was for geeks and techno wizards. Now everybody's on the internet. No offense, our grandmothers are on the internet, right? My grandmother has a Facebook app that she uses to like communicate with all of us. And she had to give her information up to use that video chat, right? To use Facebook or to use a Gmail, right? So everybody's on the internet. And every time you go on the internet, you open yourself up to risk. You open yourself up to giving someone else your information. And then we also have social media. Social media is really big in the news because it is a good way for companies, not just bad actors, to mine our information and mine our data, right? You know, you use Facebook and you say, hey, well, Facebook is awesome, right? Facebook is awesome. Twitter is awesome. Instagram is awesome. TikTok is awesome. And it's also free. But why is this stuff free? This stuff is free because it's collecting your information. It's collecting everyone's information, and it sells that information to advertisers, to people who want to monitor your behaviors, or to people who want to monitor patterns, right? That's where the big data revolution comes in, right? And I'm sure there's another presentation that someone else can give you. I am not a big data expert. I know it from a security standpoint, but big data is another STEM-related computer science discipline that people are a part of, right? It's analyzing trends, analyzing data to better understand people's behaviors or better understand buying behaviors. It's easier for a company to analyze that data and say, hey, Well, African-American men under the age of 40 who live in the DC metropolitan area all like black Nikes. So let's sell black Nikes, you know? And they make a lot of money that way. And they get that from Facebook, right? That Facebook doesn't make money by selling you a free service, right? That's how they go about that, right? So all of that information, all of that data is a part of this discipline of big data. And with that comes inherent risk. And that's where cybersecurity professionals like myself come into play. So that creates a market. We just talked about a lot of money. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about a lot of data. With that comes money. The big thing on here is Equifax. That's why it's in the middle of the screen. If you haven't dealt with Equifax, you probably have and you just don't know it. If you have a credit card, you have some sort of credit history, Equifax has information on you, right? If you have a credit card, it's because Equifax, TransUnion, and there's another one. They're all the three big credit unions, right? But they collect all of this financial information on you, but they also have a lot of personal information on you as well. Anytime your data is breached or it's compromised, Equifax knows about it, and they attach dollar amounts to that, right? So in this particular time frame that this information was collected, there's $145 million of consumer data, right? Just data. I'm not talking about damage to them individually, but just the amount of data that was sold of consumers, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of resources that have been extracted from people, right? We also look at this $6.5 billion private equity in cybersecurity. Now that's not bad. That's not like that's not a breach, right? These are the amount of companies that are investing in cybersecurity. $6.5 billion is a lot of money for a subset of information technology, right? You're not selling anything to anybody. It's no big customer groundswell, but there are these private equity companies that are getting involved saying, hey, I want to infuse money into this because I can make a profit. And what does that mean from you? So the future cybersecurity professionals of the world, people are pumping money into this particular discipline to get more cybersecurity professionals, deliver more cybersecurity services, and more professionalism from a cybersecurity standpoint. So those are some key takeaways from these particular slides. All right, again, the Minty Code. Go check the Minty Code out, www.minty.com. Put the code in. There's a question. What is the most vulnerable component of an information system? Go ahead and answer that particular question, and we're going to look at that here in a second. All right. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do that. Okay. Share my screen here. Somebody's a ringer. All right, Skiwa, I've shared my screen. If you could go ahead and put that up for me. Oh, did I do the whole screen? That's my bad. Let me see. All right, let's try that again. That's a lot more pleasant right there. All right, so what's the most vulnerable component of an information system? I don't know who this person is. I've never met this person a day in my life, but this is a somewhat right answer, right? So the most vulnerable component of an information system is absolutely people. People is always the answer. You can't patch us. You can't update us. Some of us are smart. Some of us are not so smart. And when anybody wants to hack a system, it is easier to fool a person than to spend the resources to not only find a penetration tester or to find some network guru to circumvent all of these controls. It's just easier just to fool somebody and get their password. So the user, yes. People, yes, are always the most vulnerable component of an information system. Take that with you throughout your life, whether it's cybersecurity or not, and realize that people are always the weakest link in any chain. Just ensure that as you go through your career, you're smart enough and you're paying attention that you aren't the weakest link in that particular chain. And part of cybersecurity is us, performing awareness. Anyone who's had a job working anywhere, you will have to take cybersecurity training. You will take cybersecurity training at least once a year. You will take cybersecurity training multiple times a year, because we are trying to make smart users. We're trying to put smart people in our organization to ensure that they are aware of the different attacks that exist, right? A lot of money and a lot of resources go into the user and into people, because we can put all the resources, all the firewalls, all the great technological innovations. We can pay millions of dollars to companies like CrowdStrike out there. Go check CrowdStrike out. They are a big company in cybersecurity. If you want to see kind of what careers look like in that particular lane, CrowdStrike, check them out on Twitter. Follow them on Twitter. Follow them on LinkedIn. Check out what they're doing on YouTube. A great company to kind of see what the latest trends are in cybersecurity as well. All right. Okay, well, if you could take me back to the deck. Okay. So also in the news, we've been talking a lot about ransomware. We heard about the gas pipelines. This was, I don't know, a couple of months ago. Someone had actually got into the gas pipelines in the United States. And it was kind of a big deal, because what happened was they pretty much shut down the gas pipeline, and there was no gas for that particular region. And if there's no gas, prices go up, people are inconvenienced, people can't get to work, and it's a really big deal for anyone in that region. And from a ransomware attack perspective, what happens in that sort of attack is someone is essentially taking hostage of that data and saying, hey, I'm not going to give you access to your data until you give me money. Just like we've seen in the Die Hard or whatever movie that you're into, where they take hostages. It's the same thing, except the hostage is not a person, it's data. And that happens all over the world. It happens all over the country. We do it too. We do it to other countries and other people as well, but we don't necessarily show that on the news. But that's what a ransomware attack is. And what we're going to see here in this particular video, this demo, it's about a 10-minute video. We're going to go through the anatomy of a ransomware attack. And you're also, not only that, I want you to pay close attention to the different steps that go into ransomware, right? And the different disciplines, the different knowledge sets or knowledge bases that might go into executing any one of these particular lanes of attack. Because it's not as simple as clicking a button, and it's a ransomware attack. It's a very methodical process. We're going to go through that narrative here when we watch this video. So hope you enjoy the video. Write down, take any questions, and we'll surely talk about it as soon as we're done.
This is a very fast-moving video, but it's very informative. Try to pay attention to details. I'm going to be going through it and taking it apart a little bit later in the presentation.
How did you decide to become a hacker?
Well, I'm not really sure what it means to become a hacker. That's like some guy in a hoodie who types really fast and stays up all night writing code and cracking passwords. It's not me. I just spy on people and see what makes them click. It's not a bad job.
Mark Hanning, CEO of Qualicart, set to report earnings after their blockbuster IPO.
So you consider this a job?
I put a lot of work into this. I'm not lazy. It takes research to figure out the key players, learn all about them, their families, their friends, what they care about. You have to understand the company's organization. I get a lot of my information from the sales department because they're always so quick and eager. They're hungry. People trust too easily. They don't look at the details. I do. Details matter. That's what I'm good at. It has to look completely believable. It has to look familiar. This is where research is important. It's not some generic piece of spam. It's an email from their boss with their company's signature. It's written in the voice of the boss. It's what he would say if he were writing this.
What about the malware itself? How does that work?
Somebody else out there already wrote all the code that does the actual attack. I'm just using it in the attachment. My skill is in my ability to get a bunch of people to click on that attachment. I always wonder what it's like when the whole thing unfolds on their end. when the panic sets in.
Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey, this is Rajiv in finance. Call me as soon as you get this. Something's up with my laptop. I can't.
Are you on your way into the office? Something's going on with our file servers.
It's Karen in HR. Our benefits dashboard seems really slow. We're getting calls from users on it. Can you call when you get this? Joining conference now.
Apparently, there's a malware attack targeting our main.
It's ransomware. They're holding us hostage. We're locked out of everything. I can't even check my phone. What about the backup?
That will take days.
We need this fixed now. Just pay it. We don't have a choice. We're reporting earnings in 2 hours.
But how do we know that they'll...
Pay it. Put every single person on getting us back up and running. That's the only priority now. Okay, it's done. I have the decrypt key. Mark, we have a big problem. The ransomware was just to distract us. They got inside. They got everything. Customer data, financials, everything.
Qualicart is reeling today from the news that hackers have released the personal information of nearly
The Nasdaq closed lower today, led by Qualicart, which was down 14% on news that their recent data breach may be far worse than the company originally
Its stock fell to a new all-time low on news that CEO Mark Hanning is stepping down after what is turning out to be one of the worst breaches of personal information in recent history.
Do you feel bad about releasing the personal information? All the financials? All the money that was lost?
All I did was get the files. I'm not the one that decided to release them. I'm not the one that shorted the stock. Somebody else had their reasons for that. It's above my pay grade. I was paid to do a job, and I did it well. And that's what's expected of anyone, isn't it? Anyway, markets bounce back.
Now let's take apart that video. From the beginning, this company, Qualicart, by the way, Qualicart and the individuals mentioned are all fictitious. We'll take it apart here. So it doesn't mention why Qualicart was a target, and even the attacker didn't really give any, it doesn't matter to her, right? She was just hired to do the job, right? So for some reason, Qualicart was the target, and this Mark Hanning is the CEO of Qualicart. So she did a little easy research, did a lookup, and does anybody recognize the, that's probably really hard to see back there, but this SP in a search engine? Anybody know what that is? So flick over and show you here. Star Page, anybody heard of that? The world's most secure, at least claims to be the world's most private search engine. My only point in that was saying that she was trying to stay on the down low, right? She was trying to stay undetected with even her research and reconnaissance, didn't want anybody tracking her back. So she was trying to stay private. She finds Mark Hanning, confirms that in fact he is the CEO of Qualicart. Then she goes on to the one application on the web where way too many people put way too much information, Facebook. However, you know, even on the front page, relationships says that Mark here is married to Lisa Hanning. So let's do a little research on Lisa to see what we can find. Lisa went to Wesleyan University. So then the attacker fabricates this character, Julie, and reaches out and says, hey, remember me back from college? You know, and tries to add herself as a friend with a friend request. Julie, or Lisa rather, says, well, I don't remember Julie, but you know, she knew a lot of people in college. So she accepts the request. And after that, the hacker is looking through all of her personal photos of her kids, and I think that was probably the most disturbing part of the whole video is this attacker's looking through their personal life to try to gather clues as to how they can compromise this company. And also, there was a quick little blurb here. There was a press release where it was telling about Qualicart was making record earnings. So that was information she could keep as part of her attack. And she does a lookup on this this employment site. It's like employ.net. I think it's a British job site, LinkedIn sort of thing. And she was able to glean from that the other employees that work at Qualicart. And then went on to Qualicart's website, clicked on contact sales. There was a reason for this. Just reached out and fabricated some request to meet them for whatever reason. The sales department, of course, wants sales. So they reply back, to Mario, this other fabricated individual, to say, yeah, we'd love to meet you. Okay? Included in his signature is, included in his email is his signature, which the attacker uses to just grab the signature and plug in a fictitious user, which we'll cover here in just a second, so that the signature looks legitimate. Before that step, but it made sense to go there first, she does a little search to see what domain names are similar in spelling to Qualicart, saw that Qualcart, just replacing the I with the L, was available, added the domain, you get a free email account with it, created an email, m.hanning@Qualcart, which is very close to m.hanning@Qualicart, and that's what she used back here to create that signature. Then she goes out to Malware RS, downloads malware from the service, and they say, look at the bitcoins they're asking for, 100,000 bitcoins. So $12,000 a pop, that's a lot of money. That's a high ransom, right? Downloads the file. This is an exploit kit. Includes it in an email that looks legitimate out to the individuals that she gathered off of that employment site, a number of them. Attaches the forged signature, the attachment. It looks legitimate. It references the press release. You know, hey, good job on the earnings last quarter. Keep it up. Here are our plans in this attached PDF. And only a discerning eye, I don't have it show it on this chart here, would be able to tell that in the top the email address had an I instead of an L to try to thwart the efforts. So of course people look at it, it looks legit, they want to know what's going on, they open the PDF, and next thing you know, they pull it down and ransomware compromises their machines. The nice thing about this is the attacker gets a nice handy dashboard of how many installs and how many locked screens there are. So that's it's very convenient for the attacker, not so much for the victim. Right? Then the panic sets in. IT gets calls. My PC's running slow. I can't get in. I got this weird screen. And IT gets up to management and upper management. What do? We can't let this get out. Our reputation is at stake. We got to shut it down as quickly as possible, pay the ransom. I don't care how much it is. We just got to shut it down before the word gets out. But they're using a browser, the Tor browser. Who knows what that is? The onion router, Tor. You guys heard of that? Just wraps things in layers so that it's hard to track. So she's using all these tools on the, where she can cover her tracks. You notice she's doing the entire thing from some coffee shop, the entire attack. So even though they tracked it back by IP to this, what are they going to do, right? So anyway, the victim decides to pay the ransom, they get the key, they unlock their system, and all is good. The system comes back. It's done, it's quieted, their reputation is saved, they're just out a bunch of money, and they can move on. Except that the ransomware was only covering for the real attack, where with the command and control mechanisms, they're inside, they're past their perimeter firewall on systems with free reign to whatever goes on inside their network. And they found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which were all their financial informations and social security cards, which I didn't grab a picture of because it made me nervous even to get a snapshot of fictitious social security numbers. But everything from this company they need to ruin the company. Okay. And then the repercussions. So word gets out that they were compromised. Confidential information was leaked. The stocks go down, the shareholders are starting to bail out. The news finds out, and they're more than willing to drag you through the mud. Then, the stocks fall even more as a result of that. And the shareholders are looking for someone to hold accountable for this, and they need their scapegoat. And poor Mark Hanning, who had exactly nothing to do with this attack, maybe he didn't even receive this attachment, wasn't aware at all, he takes the fall for it. All right, so here's some sources I had. The Anatomy of an Attack was the video, and you can Google that and find that. And then one of them was Ransomware Defense for Dummies. It's a really great little book. I actually found it as a booklet, but it's available as a PDF for free. And if you search for that, you can get all these other ones as well.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. That was a pretty simplified video of a ransomware attack, and not just a ransomware attack, but also any number of attacks, right? When we're learned to be penetration testers, or we're learned to hunt other hackers, because that is a profession, to hunt other hackers, we have to learn the methodology of how a hacker thinks, what steps they have to go through, and what is the whole process of performing this, right? This isn't a 24-hour activity. This isn't a 48-hour activity. My ethical hacker teacher was a former special operations guy. He was attached to the Green Berets, and his job was to compromise foreign adversaries overseas. And he said none of our hacks would take 48 hours. None of them would take 24 hours, right? These were things that we would do over weeks, over months. And a hacking team didn't have one or two people. This is a team of 10, 15, 20 people with various different disciplines, right? And as we walk through those steps of that video, we could kind of see those different steps, right? So what was the first thing we discussed? We discussed reconnaissance. That doesn't take any sort of information technology experience or acumen, right? This is basically a grifter. If you've ever watched Ocean's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16, or whatever number they're on right now, I don't know, I think it was Brad Pitt's character. All that person does is dress up in disguise, act like they're somebody else. They're really charming, and they try to get information out of you. They build a rapport. You know, they might apply for a job at your company and come in and ask all types of questions. You think you're interviewing them for a job, and they're really interviewing you, extracting information about what type of systems do you have? What kind of servers do you guys use here? I'm a Windows guy. Do you guys use Linux? And all of these sort of questions. But they're building a profile on your particular company and extracting information. That's all called reconnaissance. And they can do that for weeks, months, or even years. In the example I provided previously about the gas pipelines, there was a reconnaissance team and an initial compromise team that compromised the gas pipeline and then went away. Their job was done. They weren't there for ransomware. They weren't there to get any information. Their job was to go in, get access to the gas pipeline, and then give that to the next team, right? So that's what we're looking at. And that gathering of information is going to build a profile that we can use to the gentleman talking about a phishing email. Absolutely. Phishing is one of the top ways that people get they compromise information systems. But in order to draft the phishing email or to perform a phishing or spear phishing attack, you have to have reconnaissance information. And to those that don't know what a phishing attack is essentially an email, right, that is attempting to come across as authentic, build a rapport. The video talked about using a URL. That's a www.linwoodistalking.com, right? That's your URL. They want something that looks close, that looks authentic, that looks legitimate, right? So when somebody opens it, it's like, hey, oh, this is Bank of America. Bank of America is telling me my password needs to be reset, right? They know what a Bank of America email looks like. They got a legitimate account. They've locked their account, so they can see what an email from Bank of America looks like when you lock your account. They'll make an email that looks just like that, right? That's what all that reconnaissance is for. And then they'll go and they'll create a phishing attack. Now, the gentleman quipped about malware are us, which is very interesting. I have your question about Kali Linux, which is interesting because you don't need to learn how to write your own malware. There are sites that I will not provide for you. There are sites that you can go to and you can download malware depending on what type of attack that you are trying to carry out, right? If you do want to get into writing your own malware for defensive measures, or you want to learn how to write your own definitions for antivirus and things of that nature, there is a programming language called Python. Python is the go-to language for cybersecurity development. Virus definitions, like I said, malware, all of these sort of things are using Python. Python's relatively close to Java. So if you want to get into programming, C#, Java, Python, anything in those type of lanes will help build your skill set if you want to get into that development application security side of cybersecurity. But going back to the use case of malware RS, to say I just want to extract something from an email, you can download that. It's got all the bells and whistles. He talked about a dashboard. There are dashboards that exist there, and those tools exist. Let's say you want an entire suite of tools, right? It used to be called Backtrack, right? Backtrack is an entire operating system. It's based on Linux. Pretty much all security stuff is based on Linux. If you want to get into cybersecurity, you got to leave Windows behind. You got to leave Apple behind, and you got to go to the Linux world. And there is an operating system that used to be called Backtrack that then evolved into what is Kali Linux today, which is in the comments. You can download that for free. Kali Linux is available free. I think it's kali.org or something like that. It's a quick Google. It's not hard to find. And you can download Kali Linux. It's an entire operating system that is geared towards cybersecurity, penetration testing, cyber defense, so on and so forth. But it doesn't provide a lot of information on how to use it, right? So I'm going to provide some resources here in a second on where you can go to learn about that. One place that you can go is you can go to kalilinux.org, and they're going to have some resources that you can either reach out through them or via a third party to learn how to use that and various tools that are in there. Also, there's a YouTube type site called SecurityTube. I think it's securitytube.net. I'll post a link here in a second. SecurityTube, that will give you various different primers and mega primers on how to carry out cyber defense, how to use Kali Linux, how to create your own malware for legitimate purposes, not to mess anybody up, how to compromise wireless defenses, right? SecurityTube is a good site for that, for a wide range of cybersecurity actions and activities that are going on for educational purposes. Great place to start. You don't need to pay any money, and that'll be posted here later in the presentation. Another tool that was also mentioned, I use this tool all the time, not even from a cybersecurity standpoint, just because I don't want to be tracked. I'm a cybersecurity guy. I am paranoid by nature. I might want to go to my regular sites, and I don't want anybody tracking me, right? Because if you use Chrome, if you use, Edge or Firefox, they're tracking you, right? Not try to get your information, but just from an advertising standpoint. And I don't want to deal with all of that. I don't want people magically knowing that I'm looking for a Ford F-150. That's too much information for them to have from my standpoint. But Tor is essentially using various different proxies and hops to access regular information on the internet. It's disabling cookies. It's disabling search history so that you can search the internet, get the information that you want to use, and not be tracked by people. Tor is also one of the gateways to what you've heard is the dark web. You use a Tor browser to access that as well. There is information on the dark web on SecurityTube as well as other sites as well, but we're not going to get into that. But that was the anatomy of a ransomware attack, and we saw that once they got access, they used a phishing email after the reconnaissance. They were able to deploy a payload, and then once they deploy that payload, then they get access either to that person's computer, or they can just deploy a virus that is going to duplicate itself, much like COVID, across an entire network, right? And once it starts to duplicate itself across the network, it will encrypt data, right? It encrypts data. We saw a key. We saw a key in that video, right? Once that data is encrypted, I don't need it. I'm not going to do anything with it. I can download it if I want to, but I just want to encrypt it so you can't use it, right? And now that you can't use it, you can't give gas to people. You can't deliver services. You are in a panic. Your world is about to end. The only person that can help you is me. And if you want me to help you, I'm the bad guy. Guess what? It's going to cost you 100,000 Bitcoin. And I know you need it by Thursday. I know you need it fast. You got stakeholders. You got shareholders. All of that needs to happen. I'm going to help you. I'm a bad guy. 100,000 Bitcoin. Send it to my account. Also deployed in the malware package. All of that is already streamlined across the board. We have some questions. How come the malware you download from the site doesn't infect your OS? Because it depends on the payload, right? Because typically a user workstation does not have sensitive information that they're trying to get to, right? We all have workstations, and I don't really need your workstation, right? We're all accessing things in our network drive, some sort of server. That's great that I got access to it. I can maybe elevate my access. I can maybe, see what you're doing on the workstation, but the more valuable data is going to be on an intermediate server. I want to be on the server. I want to be on the network. So any traffic that's being communicated, I'm at that level. I want to know where the data is, where the source of the data is. That's where the money is. That's the sweet spot. So you can deploy some sort of rootkit. A rootkit is basically a software package where I can drop that. And that's what they did in the case of the gas pipeline. That team was able to compromise those systems, drop a rootkit, they're done. Passing it off to the next team. The next team comes in, we got a rootkit, we got a back door, we can get whatever resources we want to get to. What are we going to do? What bad stuff are we going to do? Let's do a ransomware attack. That's kind of how that works. What is the dark web? So the dark web is basically, it's a lot more ominous than it sounds, right? It's an internet under the internet, right? So before we use the internet that we use today, the World Wide Web is what we used to call it. There were no www.facebook.coms, right? We use DNS is what we use for that. It's the domain naming service. It takes an IP address and puts a name to it, right? So it's very easy to search the internet. www.ups.com, www.mcdonalds.com. It makes it really intuitive for anyone to use the internet. The dark web takes all that away. There is no DNS server. There are IP addresses that can be privately owned by some guy in his basement out in Wichita that has his own servers and his own services, or it could be an actual company that's on the dark web. There are legitimate businesses on the dark web, but you have to have a browser like Tor that can not only protect you while you're out here surfing, but also understand how to get to one of these servers. You need to know an IP address. Not only that, once you get to these IP addresses, a lot of these endpoints are secure and they're private. So you need some sort of permission or you need some sort of access in order to even get past their firewalls. And you'll go to those particular IP addresses. Again, there's no tracking. There's no DNS server that is bouncing off of. So that's why a lot of criminals prefer the dark web, because they can access certain information without someone snooping that information, without it bouncing off of a DNS server, because the government owns the top level DNS servers. The government monitors those, and they can see when you're trying to go to Facebook. That doesn't exist on the dark web, right? You're going directly point to point to an endpoint. So you're able to get nefarious data a lot easier than in the public web. All right. Good questions. Great questions. All right. So that was a demo of a ransomware attack. On to the next particular topics. We're going to talk about what that looks like from a career standpoint, right? We talked about ransomware, but we're going to talk about cybersecurity careers as well. Top 10 jobs in cybersecurity. This changes every week, so don't take this slide as gospel. But these are 10 cool jobs in cybersecurity. One particular job subset, I tried to put it in groups for you so you can kind of make sense of it, are attackers. These are your pen testers. These are your hackers. These are your bad guys, the guys that do all the cool stuff with all the cool toys. This is the most provocative sub-skill set within cybersecurity, but it's also might likely be the smallest, right? You got your white hat hackers. These are guys that are good guys. They're hackers. They're penetration testers like myself. We learn how to hack, but we don't do anything bad, right? We're doing it just because from a research standpoint, or we're doing it to support our job or something like that. You got black hats. These are the bad guys. They just want to see the world burn. You got red hat hackers. They do bad things too, but they only do it for money. Blue hats, they're Batman. They're kind of vigilantes out here. They just want to go and hack other bad people, but they're not given the green light by any sort of law enforcement agency or anything like that. They're like Anonymous. If you've heard of Anonymous, the guys with the cool Faustian masks and all of that, they will be blue hat guys because they will go and hack bad people or just jerks, right? They think they're jerks, so they'll go and hack them. That is what Anonymous would be. Defenders, these are career sets that we don't often talk about, but these guys make a lot of money, and they're the ones that deal with cybersecurity operations on a day-to-day. Security engineers, these are the guys like myself that implement firewalls. We implement firewall configurations, malware detection at a server level, boundary protections, implementing zero trust architectures. These are all things you can go on Google. These are things that we discuss at lunch at our jobs. These are cybersecurity topics that companies today say, I want to implement zero trust, right? These are disciplines that are all come out of the defenders, security engineers. There are architects, there are analysts. Analysts, these are the guys that sit in the dark room and they look at the big Star Wars screen and they see all the vulnerabilities and say, hey, there's a vulnerability there. Somebody's trying to get into our firewalls. This looks like a denial of service attack. Security analysts are doing that particular activity. Forensics people are typically attached to law enforcement. They're the ones that say, hey, somebody's been engaged in some sort of criminal activity, and they've kept all of that criminal activity on their computer, but it's locked or whatever, and that's evidence. Forensic IT professional will come in, preserve evidence. Come in, they can hack encrypted drives, or they can get a burned drive. If somebody wants to burn a drive, they can take a drive that's been burned, reconstitute it, bring it back to a workable state, and get that data off of it. Also a great career field in cybersecurity. Risk management. I've done risk management work as well. So somebody needs to translate all of these services and all of these activities into money, right? Because we do all these great things. People want to hack us. Great. The people in the suits, the people that are in the C-suite, where all the CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, they don't really care about the technical part. How much is it going to cost me? What is the risk? What is the likelihood of it happening? That is where risk management comes in. We communicate the risk, we communicate the impact, and we translate it into dollar signs, right? So that's one thing that we do. We also assess information systems because there are baselines. You see that in governance at the bottom. All of these baselines at the bottom, there are rules. This is what a secure information system looks like. This is what a secure information system should have. All of these things should be built in, right? But somebody needs to go and say, all right, well, give me the playbook. I'm going to go and assess Microsoft. I'm going to go and assess the Department of Defense. I'm going to go and assess the Department of Homeland Security. And I'm going to give them a report card letting them know if they did a good job or if they did a bad job. There's an entire career field around those sort of people that perform risk management activities. And oftentimes, because they deal with the money in the C-suite, the risk management guys make more money than the penetration testing guys. Believe me on that. All right. We'll get to those questions in just a second. I'm going to close out this slide and I'll get to some questions. So how can you become a cybersecurity professional, IT professional, or an engineer, right? This doesn't even have anything specifically to do with cybersecurity. This is just being a good consumer of STEM, being a good scientist, a good engineer, a good architect. One is to become a pro, right? Just like if you were playing football or you were playing basketball, you need to be professional about what you were doing. And I don't mean putting on a suit as in professional. I mean taking your vocation seriously. You need to consume the resources that have to do with your particular job, whether that's blogs, whether that's Reddit, whether that's newspapers. You need to consume all of that information and apply it to your daily life. You don't just apply this when you go to work. You are a pro. I'm a cybersecurity professional no matter where I go. Also, build something, right? Don't just learn about it, create a lab. There are free tools for you to create your own lab out there. Build a lab in your home. I think Oracle has some tools, VirtualBox or whatever it's called. You can find some VMware tools out there for free too. Build something, build a lab. Even if it's an engineering standpoint, build a robot, build a CAD system, whatever. Build something, get hands-on, enjoy it, become a lover of your particular field, and then formalize your understanding. What that means is go and get a certification. Go and get a Security Plus if you're in cybersecurity, or get a programming certification or something like that. Formalize that understanding because they want to see that on a resume. It's great that you got a lab, but they want to see the paperwork. It's great that you got a paperwork, but they want you to have a lab in the background so you can communicate what it is that you say that you're certified. They go hand in hand. Don't do one, do both, right? And also find a mentor and have fun. If you're looking for a mentor in cybersecurity, I'm on LinkedIn. You feel free to reach out to me. I engage with a lot of young men, young women in the field all the time and can help you with your career. And if it's not me, Linwood, you're a jerk, or I don't want to get into cybersecurity, find somebody, because those relationships matter. Above pretty much anything, relationships are always going to matter, and they're always going to help you get to where you need to be. And finally, have fun. Here's some resources that I talked about earlier. SecurityTube.net is up there. And I see I have some questions with this last 5 minutes. What sticks out to you about cybersecurity? the mindset of cybersecurity, being a tinkerer, being an investigator by nature. If you ever wanted to be a cop without being a cop, cybersecurity is kind of in that particular lane, right? You're constantly investigating and researching, and kind of you're the guy at the magic show who's like, I see what he's doing. I see what the trick is. That's what sticks out about cybersecurity. We're a bunch of guys like that in a room trying to protect data, and our jobs always mean something too. You don't just go and punch a clock and, deliver paperwork. Everything that we do matters. Everything either is going to cost safety, it's going to cost loss of life, or it's going to cost a lot of money, right? If we don't do our jobs. So it's an important job to have. And I don't think there are more questions.
This is the last go round. If anyone has any other questions for Linwood, that was such a great presentation. And, that last slide where you're talking about things that, whether we're talking about cybersecurity or some other STEM area, those are some great takeaway points for people that are watching. So for our last question of the night, I guess, where do you see cybersecurity heading? As we talk about how advanced technology gets and how much more of our information is put, in these cyberspaces, particularly like we have social media, and you mentioned in the presentation, even, for example, from cash to being able to use our cell phones to make, shopping transactions. But we know that technology is advancing even further than that, with having our personal information and our lives and identities on the internet. So could you just give us a little bit more information about where cybersecurity is heading?
Yeah. Great question. Especially in the United States, right? So different countries and different regions do it a little bit differently. One area that the United States has to catch up to our European neighbors and our Asian neighbors is privacy. We have an expectation of privacy, but we don't really have any rules on privacy, right? You give personal information to a company, you don't even know what they have or what they're doing it for, or what they're using it for, right? In a European country, GDPR is their particular regulation on privacy. Not only do they have to get your permission to get that data, you also have the right at any given time in your life to say, I want to know my data that you have. They're obligated by law to give you a readout of all the information that they have. And you can say, nope, I don't want you to have that. Go delete that. Those are rights from a privacy standpoint that they have in other countries. We have yet to have that in the United States, except for in California, soon to be New York, but the other countries do not. There is an expectation of privacy and the services that go into that have to be developed in the United States, right? Because we're to the point now, you're not going to hide any data from anybody. Your information, your personal information is out there, right? You willingly do that. Every time you take a survey on Facebook and you start saying, hey, I'm a Gemini and I like, to do X, Y, and Z, they're building a profile on you. That information is out there. So it's not a matter of hiding information, hoarding it and keeping it in your house. It's having visibility and transparency in the ability to delete that data or remove that data wherever it lives. That's the next step.
Well, thank you so much, Linwood, for being our last speaker for our 2021 Teen Science Cafe series. I thought Takia was gonna say something, but but there has been a survey dropped in the chat, in the comments, and whether you joined us live or are watching the replay, we ask that you please fill out that survey. It helps us to continue to bring you these programs, and you even have a chance to share what you would like to see next. So with that being said, we hope that everyone has a good holiday season, and take care, everyone. And I will be dropping, Linwood, it's okay to drop your LinkedIn in the comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, someone asked. I am going to put that in there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Linwood. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we want to wish everyone a happy holidays and a early happy new year, because January 1st will be here before we know it. Good evening, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
Bye.